What began as a basic need for lodging would transform into the most complex evening of his existence. Trail dirt still covered Clyde's worn jacket as he neared the glowing lamp visible through the window. His mount snorted from fatigue, reflecting his own profound exhaustion following 3 days of relentless travel across harsh landscape. The wooden placard hanging askew beside the entrance displayed, "Oakwood Inn, travelers welcome." At this moment, those words appeared like deliverance. He rapped twice on the door. The noise reverberated through the peaceful dusk. Substantial footfalls drew near from within, accompanied by muffled conversations and sounds resembling hasty preparation. The entrance opened wide, revealing a woman of substantial build. Her silver-streaked hair was pulled back strictly, wearing a flower-covered apron atop a navy dress. "My goodness," she declared, her expression brightening as she observed his imposing stature and rugged appearance. "Mabel Thornfield's my name. You appear to be a gentleman who's traveled difficult roads." Clyde respectfully tipped his hat brim. "Good evening, madam. I'm Clyde Baxter. I wonder if you might have lodging available tonight. I can offer fair compensation." Mabel's grin expanded even wider. "Indeed we do. Please enter." "Enter. Gertrude, Beulah, we have company." 2 additional women emerged from what appeared to be the cooking area, both similarly plump and radiating sudden delight. The middle sister, Gertrude, dried her palms on her apron, while the youngest, Beulah, actually tittered behind her hand. "An actual gentleman visitor?" Beulah murmured to her siblings loudly enough for Clyde to overhear. Something in their enthusiastic demeanor caused Clyde's stomach to knot with concern. He'd anticipated basic courtesy, not this excessive eagerness. The 3 ladies shared significant glances, and he detected portions of excited murmurs regarding at last and ideal timing. "I simply require a bed and perhaps some food if available," Clyde stated cautiously, suddenly feeling like Corey that had stumbled into a deliberately set snare. "Oh, we'll provide such excellent care," Mabel said, virtually pushing him toward a threadbare but tidy parlor. "Won't we, sisters?" The manner in which all 3 women regarded him then, with a blend of optimism and resolve in their gaze, informed Clyde this would prove far more complex than a basic night's sleep. And as Beulah rushed away to ready the special chamber, he understood he might have just entered the most perilous circumstance of his wandering existence. The special chamber proved to be their finest quarters, furnished with crisp bedding, wildflowers in a glass jar, and what seemed to be their grandmother's finest coverlet. However, as Clyde placed his traveling bags down, he observed something unusual. The door knob had been buffed to brilliance, and a subtle fragrance of cologne lingered in the atmosphere. "Gertrude's preparing her renowned beef stew," Mabel declared from the threshold, her frame completely filling the opening. "She reserves it for special events." "That's very generous, though I don't wish to cause any inconvenience," Clyde responded, despite his stomach betraying him an audible growl. "Ridiculous. A gentleman of your build requires adequate sustenance." Mabel's gaze traced his broad shoulders and labor-hardened physique with clear appreciation. "When did you last enjoy a home-prepared meal?" The truthful response was weeks, yet something in her inflection made him cautious. "I manage adequately while traveling." "The trail?" Mabel clucked disapprovingly. "That's no existence for a mature man. A gentleman needs stability, permanence, someone to tend to him properly." Before Clyde could reply, Beulah materialized with a steaming bowl of water and fresh cloths. "For cleansing," she said breathlessly, her cheeks colored pink. "I warmed especially." The consideration should have been reassuring, yet instead it felt like a trap gradually closing around him. When had 3 women ever doted on him in this manner? Never, that's when. And the way they continued sharing those glances. "Dinner's prepared," Gertrude announced from below. The dining area table was arranged with their finest porcelain, 3 settings on one side and a single place setting opposite them. Candles glowed despite the early evening hour, and Gertrude had clearly exceeded expectations. Beef stew, fresh bread, green beans, and what appeared to be apple pie cooling on the windowsill. "Please be seated." Mabel indicated the solitary chair like a throne. As Clyde positioned himself, all 3 women took their places across from him, observing his every action with intense focus. He sampled a spoonful of stew. It was truly delicious, and they leaned forward as one. Satisfactory? Gertrude inquired hopefully. Outstanding, madam. The finest I've tasted in years. The sisters practically radiated with satisfaction. Beulah pressed her hands together. We seldom have occasion to prepare meals for a genuine gentleman. How seldom? Clyde questioned, though he was starting to suspect the response. Well, Mabel said, exchanging a meaningful glance with her sisters. It's been considerable time since any gentleman travelers passed through. Months, in fact. Years, Beulah quietly corrected, which explains why. Gertrude added, serving another portion into his bowl without inquiry. We desire to ensure you're adequately cared for. The way she stressed adequately made Clyde's utensil pause midway to his mouth. He surveyed the table at three hopeful faces, noticing how they'd all changed into their finer garments and arranged their hair since his arrival. I'm grateful for the hospitality, truly, but I'll be departing at first light tomorrow. The collective disappointment crossing their features was so deep it was nearly amusing. Nearly. Oh, but certainly you could remain just another day, Beulah implored. There's so much we could demonstrate around the grounds, Mabel added swiftly. And we rarely get converse with anyone about the outside world, Gertrude said, her voice gaining assurance. Plus, traveling alone is quite hazardous. Wouldn't it be pleasant to have someone concerned about you, to possess a genuine home? There it was. The snare had just revealed itself entirely, and Clyde realized these three solitary women weren't merely offering hospitality. They were auditioning him for something far more lasting. Clyde placed his utensil down carefully, selected his words like a man defusing explosives. Ladies, I'm honored by your generosity, but I'm not seeking to establish roots anywhere. I'm a wandering man by disposition. The atmosphere in the room seemed to drop 10 degrees. Mabel's smile wavered, Gertrude's hopeful look collapsed, and Beulah's eyes actually began filling with tears. But why? Beulah whispered, don't you experience loneliness out there completely alone? The truthful answer was yes, more than he wished to acknowledge. However, loneliness was safer than the complications accompanying expectations he couldn't fulfill. It's simply the existence I selected. Selected? Mabel's voice carried a harsh edge now. Or is it the existence that was imposed upon you by circumstances? Her insight caught him unprepared. There had been reasons he'd taken to wandering, painful ones he didn't share with strangers. Yet these women were regarding him as if they could see directly through to his damaged soul. Sometimes, Gertrude said gently, the finest things in life are those we didn't anticipate. We understand you don't know us, Beulah added, leaning forward earnestly. But we're decent women. We labor hard. We're truthful. And we'd never demand a man be something he isn't. We simply desire someone to share our existence with, Mabel said, her tough facade cracking to reveal genuine vulnerability. This place becomes quite silent with just the three of us. Clyde looked around the table at three faces filled with such raw hope it made his chest constrict. These weren't scheming women attempting to ensnare him. They were lonely souls offering everything they possessed to a stranger because they believed in the possibility of companionship. I comprehend your circumstances, he said slowly, and I'm not suggesting there's anything incorrect about desiring company. But marriage, that's not something to hurry into. Who mentioned marriage? Mabel asked, though her blush suggested otherwise. Well, I simply assumed. We merely want you to remain a while, Gertrude interrupted. Become acquainted with us. Allow us to know you. See what develops naturally. The difficulty was Clyde could already sense something developing. Not romantic love precisely, but a dangerous type of comfort. The warmth of the room, the aroma of home cooking, the sound of gentle voices after months of solitude. It was seductive in ways these women probably didn't even recognize. One additional day, Beulah pleaded. Simply grant us one more day to demonstrate that remaining could benefit all of us. Before Clyde could respond, a loud thunder crash shook the house. Rain began pounding against the windows with sudden ferocity, and the wind howled like something alive. All four of them looked toward the tempest, and Clyde realized his decision had just been determined for him. "Appears Mother Nature might have an opinion about my travel arrangements," he said with a rueful smile. The sisters exchanged victorious glances, and Clyde wondered if they'd been observing those clouds gathering all evening, simply waiting for this moment. The storm raged throughout the night with supernatural force, as if the heavens themselves were conspiring to keep Clyde precisely where the Thornfield sisters desired him. By dawn, what had been a passable dirt path was now a stream of mud that would trap any horse foolish enough to tempt it. "Coffee's ready," Gertrude called cheerfully from the kitchen, her voice containing more enthusiasm than any woman should possess at dawn. Clyde emerged from his room to discover all three sisters already dressed and bustling about with suspicious energy for such an early hour. The scent of bacon, eggs, and fresh biscuits permeated the air, and the dining table was once again set like a banquet. "Rest well?" Mabel inquired, though something in her tone suggested she already knew he'd spent half the night listening to the storm and grappling with the situation. "Well enough," he replied, though the truth was he lay awake thinking about three lonely women and the genuine warmth in their eyes. "Road appear passable?" "Oh, my no," Beulah said quickly, perhaps too quickly. "Completely flooded. Could be days before it's safe to travel." "Days!" The word hung in the air like a challenge. Clyde moved to the window and peered out at what was indeed a thoroughly impassable mess of standing water and churned earth. His horse stood in the small barn, contentedly eating hay, apparently unconcerned about their extended stay. "Well," he said, accepting the inevitable, "I suppose I should contribute somehow. What type of work requires attention around here?" The transformation in the sisters was immediate and dramatic. Mabel actually applauded. Gertrude beamed like Christmas morning, and Beulah bounced excitedly. "The roof's been leaking in the rear room," Mabel said, "and the fence requires repair where the wind damaged it," Gertrude added. "Plus, the firewood needs chopping for winter," Beulah contributed. They'd clearly been cataloging every possible task to keep him occupied. Clyde found himself almost entertained by their transparent enthusiasm. "Sounds like sufficient work to keep me busy. We'll prepare you lunch," Gertrude offered. "And bring you fresh water," Beulah added. "And check on you hourly to ensure you're not overexerting yourself," Mabel concluded. "Hourly might be excessive," Clyde said gently. "Every 2 hours, then," Mabel compromised without hesitation. As the morning advanced, Clyde found himself settling into an unexpected routine. The physical labor felt satisfying after days in the saddle, and the sisters' attention, while overwhelming, came from genuine concern. Gertrude's lunch was outstanding. Beulah's fresh water was always perfectly chilled, and Mabel's periodic visits included helpful suggestions about the property. But it was during the afternoon, while he was splitting log behind the house, that he overheard a conversation that changed everything. The sisters were on the back porch, apparently thinking he was beyond hearing range. "He's perfect," Beulah whispered. "Strong, courteous, and he actually pays attention when we speak. And attractive, too," Gertrude added with a giggle. "The question is," Mabel said, her voice more serious, "how we persuade him to remain permanently? A man like that could have his choice of women in any town." "Maybe that's precisely why he's alone," Beulah said thoughtfully. "Perhaps he's been wounded before. Then it's our responsibility to show him that not all women are identical," Mabel declared. "We simply must prove we're worth staying for." Clyde's axe paused mid-swing. They weren't scheming to trap him. They were planning to win him over honestly. The distinction mattered more than he'd expected. That evening, the sisters' campaign to win him over began earnestly, though they attempted to make it appear natural. Gertrude prepared a meal that belonged in an elegant restaurant, complete with roasted chicken, mashed potatoes, and vegetables from their garden. Beulah had gathered wildflowers for the table, and somehow found time to press his trail clothes. Mabel entertained him with stories of their deceased parents, and how they'd built this place from nothing. "Papa always claimed this land had good foundation," Mabel explained, gesturing toward the windows. "Said it would provide for the right family. And it has," Gertrude added quickly. "We've never gone hungry. Never lacked anything essential except companionship," Beulah said quietly, then blushed at her own boldness. Clyde found himself drawn into their stories despite his better judgment. The Thornfield sisters had spent their entire lives on this property, caring for aging parents until their deaths, never having the opportunity to court or marry or experience life beyond these walls. They'd sacrificed their youth for duty, and now they were trying to reclaim something they'd never had. "What about you?" Mabel asked suddenly. "What's your story?" A man doesn't take to the trail without reasons. The question hung in the air like smoke. Clyde took a long sip of coffee, buying time. He perfected the art of deflecting personal questions, but something about these women's honesty made his usual evasions feel dishonest. "Had a ranch down in Texas," he said finally. "Lost it to drought and debt. Lost my wife to fever the same year." The silence that followed was profound and respectful. No one offered empty platitudes or tried to minimize his loss. Beulah reached across and briefly touched his hand, a gesture so simple and genuine it nearly broke his carefully constructed walls. "That's why you keep moving," Mabel said softly. "Staying still hurts too much." Her understanding hit him like a physical blow. Something like that. "But healing doesn't come from running," Gertrude said gently. "It comes from allowing good people to care about you again. And maybe," Beulah added with tentative hope, "letting yourself care about them too." Before Clyde could respond, a commotion outside drew their attention. Horses' hooves splashed through the muddy yard, and rough voices carried through the rain. Mabel's face went pale as she peered through the window. "The Garrett boys," she whispered. "They've been drinking again." 3 men dismounted in the yard, their movements unsteady but purposeful. The largest one, a bearded brute with cruel eyes, banged on the front door with his fist. "Open up, Thornfield women. We know you got a stranger in there." Clyde stood immediately, his hand instinctively moving to where his gun belt hung by the door. "Friends of yours." "Trouble," Mabel said grimly. "They've been harassing us for months, thinking 3 women alone are easy targets." "They want the property," Gertrude added, fear creeping into her voice. "And they think they can intimidate us into selling," Beulah finished. The banging grew more insistent, and one of the men laughed nastily. "Come out and introduce us to your boyfriend. We got some business to discuss." Clyde looked at 3 frightened faces and realized the storm had brought him here for a reason that had nothing to do with romance. Clyde strapped on his gun belt with practiced efficiency, checking the cylinder with a smooth motion that spoke of years of experience. The sisters watched him transform from gentle guest to something harder and more dangerous. "Stay inside," he said quietly. "All of you." "You don't understand," Mabel protested. "There are 3 of them, and they're vicious when they're drunk. And I'm more vicious when people threaten women under my protection," Clyde replied, his voice carrying an edge that made all 3 sisters step back. The banging stopped as footsteps moved around the house. One of the men was trying to peer through windows while the others remained at the front door. "We know you can hear us," the leader shouted. "Thad Garrett don't like strangers on his territory." Clyde opened the door before anyone could stop him, stepping onto the porch with calm confidence. 3 pairs of bloodshot eyes focused on him, taking his height, the gun at his hip, and the steady way he carried himself. "Evening, gentlemen," Clyde said pleasantly. "Something I can help you with?" Thad Garrett, a mountain of a man with broken teeth and suspicious scars, spat into the mud. "You can help by mounting up and riding out. This here's family business." "Funny thing about that," Clyde replied, his tone remaining conversational. "These ladies aren't your family. Matter of fact, they asked me to stay and help out around the place." "Did they now?" The second man, wiry and nervous, laughed unpleasantly. 3 old maids got themselves a pet gunslinger. "They got themselves a neighbor who doesn't appreciate late-night visits from drunk strangers," Clyde corrected, "especially ones who seem confused about property lines." Thad's face darkened. "You got a smart mouth, stranger. We've been trying to buy this place fair and square for months," one of them said. "And they've been saying no for months," Clyde observed. "Most men would take the hint." "Most men ain't Garrett men," the third brother snarled, his hand drifting toward his gun. Clyde's eyes tracked the movement without his head moving an inch. "I'd think real careful about that next decision, friend." The tension stretched like a wire ready to snap. Rain continued to fall steadily, turning the standoff into something out of a fever dream. Behind him, Clyde could hear the sisters breathing. Their fear palpable, but their faith in him absolute. "This ain't over," Thad finally said, his survival instincts apparently overriding his liquor-fueled bravado. "You won't be here forever, and when you leave—" "When I leave," Clyde said quietly, "it'll be my choice and my timing. And anyone who bothers these ladies in my absence will answer to me personally. That clear enough for you?" The promise in his voice was unmistakable. This wasn't just protective posturing. This was a man who kept his word, no matter how inconvenient it might be. The Garrett brothers exchanged uncertain glances. They'd expected to intimidate three defenseless women, not face down a man who looked like he'd walked through hell and learned to enjoy the heat. "Come on," Thad muttered to his brothers. "We'll settle this later." They mounted their horses with significantly less swagger than they dismounted with, splashing away into night like the cowards they were. Clyde remained on the porch until their hoofbeats faded completely, then turned back to find three faces staring at him with expressions he couldn't quite read. "Well," Mabel said finally, her voice slightly shaky. That was illuminating. The morning sun broke through the clouds like a benediction, revealing a world washed clean by the storm. The road, while still muddy, was passable again. Clyde stood in the yard with his saddlebags packed, watching his horse stamp impatiently, ready to resume their journey. But everything had changed in the space of one confrontation. The three sisters stood on the porch, no longer the desperate women who had tried to trap him with kindness. They held themselves differently now, with dignity, with strength, with the knowledge that they were worth protecting. "The Garretts will be back," Mabel said matter-of-factly. "Maybe not today, maybe not tomorrow, but they'll be back." "Then I guess I'll have to be here when they come," Clyde replied, surprising himself with how natural the words sounded. Beulah's eyes widened. "You mean—" "I mean a man can get tired of running from one place to another without purpose," Clyde said, looking around the property with new eyes. "And this place, it's got good bones like your father said." Gertrude clasped her hands together. "But we don't want you to stay just to protect us. We want someone who chooses to be here," Clyde finished. "Someone who sees value in what you built and wants to be part of it." He walked to the fence line he'd mended the day before, running his hand along the sturdy rails. "I lost everything once because I was so focused on building something alone that I forgot what I was building it for. Maybe it's time I tried a different approach." Mabel stepped forward, her voice careful. "And what approach would that be?" "Partnership," Clyde said simply. "You three know this land, know how to make it prosper. I know how to protect it and work it. Seems like we might all benefit from the arrangement. And if someday you decide you want to move on—" Beulah asked, her voice small. Clyde smiled, the first truly relaxed expression they'd seen from him. "Then I reckon you'll have to convince me all over again that staying is worth it. Think you're up for that challenge." The transformation was immediate. Three faces lit up with joy so pure it was almost blinding. But more than that, they carried themselves like women who had been chosen, not settled for. "There's just one condition," Clyde added, his tone serious again. Their smiles faltered slightly. "What's that?" "Next time the Garretts come calling, you ladies stay inside and let me handle it. A man's got his pride, after all." Mabel laughed, a sound like music in the morning air. "I think that can be arranged." As Clyde unsaddled his horse and led it back to the barn, he reflected on the strange turns life could take. He'd come here seeking nothing more than shelter for one night. Instead, he'd found three women who saw past his walls to the man underneath, who offered him not just a place to stay, but a reason to stop running. Sometimes the best destinations were the ones you never planned to reach.